The taste returns first. Always the taste. Recycled air, copper-sharp blood, the specific chemical smell of insulation burning at exactly 347 degrees Celsius. His implants still catalog it. 17 cycles later. Unbidden and precise. Admiral Thel'nox vs Kelshara sits before the Galactic Armistice Commission with hands that do not shake. He has trained them well. The rest of him, the parts that cannot be trained, remains less cooperative. Admiral. The arbiter begins. You've waived. I waive counsel. I waive protections. I am here to deliver accounting. The words emerge in High Kashari, each syllable a small act of discipline. Shall I begin, or will there be further delays? The arbiter's tendrils stiffen. Offense taken. Good. Thel'nox needs him uncomfortable. Needs everyone here to feel some fraction of what he felt. Please recount the events of New Canaan. No. Thel'nox reaches into his pocket. The metal piece has been there so long it's worn a depression in the fabric, 17 cycles of carrying a splinter of his nephew's grave. First, you must understand what we were, what we believed ourselves to be. He places the twisted metal on the podium. It makes no sound. That seems wrong, somehow. The Kashari Dominion practiced Kelvara, the honorable ascension. We did not conquer. We elevated. War was pedagogy. A teaching tool for the unenlightened. We were. His secondary eyelids close involuntarily. When he opens them, the arbiter is leaning forward. Admiral? We were arrogant. Say the word. Put it in your official record. The Kashari Dominion was arrogant, and I was its perfect exemplar. Silence in the chamber. We thought we were teaching humanity, Kelvara. We were the students. We simply didn't know it yet. 3 months into the war. Or 3 months into the lesson, depending. How many human systems had the Dominion subdued by then? The arbiter asks. 12. 14 more negotiating terms. Thel'nox's voice carries no pride now, but he remembers the pride then. How it tasted. The humans fought as all species fight. Disparately at first, then rationally. They retreated when wisdom dictated. Surrendered when mathematics demanded. They were normal. And New Canaan should have been System 13. He pulls up the holochart, though he doesn't need it. Could draw New Canaan from memory in perfect detail. The twin continents, the golden agricultural plains, the cities like scattered quartz catching sunlight. Population, 840,000, defended by 8 corvettes, mass-produced, obsolete designs. He pauses. Third Fleet comprised 120 warships. My dreadnought, Kelshara's wisdom, had broken sieges on 19 worlds over 40 cycles of service. The outcome was certain? Mathematically inevitable. Thel'nox touches the metal fragment. Subcommander, Rilvesh Vas Kelshara. My sister's son, 23 cycles. Blade, newly consecrated, would lead troop carrier Kelvar's descent to accept their surrender, his first command. I'd promised his broodmother he'd return a hero. Did you believe that promise? Yes, I believed many things. The observation port. New Canaan turning beneath them, blue and gold and vulnerable. Describe your nephew's demeanor before the assault. Nervous, excited. He kept adjusting his ceremonial blade. 3rd time in an hour. Thel'nox's tertiary fingers curl, I told him. I told him there was nothing to fear, that humans were practical, that they'd see reason. Did you believe it? Thel'nox meets the arbiter's gaze. I believed I was incapable of error. There's a difference. The holochart shows fleet positions. Thel'nox watches himself make the same choices again, trapped in recorded time, unable to warn his past self. The human ships broke formation at optimal engagement range. Classic retreat. Scattered vectors. Atmospheric descent. Velnik. My sensor officer, .co. Ordinated firing solutions. Standard pursuit protocols. We'd executed this maneuver 17 times in 12 systems. What happened differently? Everything. Nothing, both. Thel'nox's hands, finally, begin to shake. Every communications frequency activated simultaneously. The voice that spoke perfect, High Kashari, not trade dialect, formal military register, no accent. Flawless. Admiral Thel'nox Vas Kelshara of the dreadnought Kelshara's wisdom. They knew your name. They knew my rank, my lineage, my ship's commissioning designation. They spoke the language of my ancestors better than some of my own officers. Thel'nox's laugh is sharp, brittle. Later, we learned they'd been studying us for months. Linguistics experts, cultural analysts. They knew exactly how to phrase what came next for maximum psychological impact. Which was, this is new Canaan defense coordination, broadcasting in 47 languages to ensure comprehension across your fleet. You have 20 minutes to achieve high orbit. Minimum altitude, 60,000 kilometers. We are deploying a planetary defense weapon. We are informing you of this because we want you to watch. Silence. We want you to understand. More silence. We want you to carry this memory back to your dominion. The arbiter shifts. You believed it was psychological warfare. Of course. What else could it be? Thel'nox's voice rises, defensive even now. No species destroys their own territory. The mathematics don't permit it. Conquest becomes meaningless if you render the prize valueless. By every strategic principle ever codified. Admiral. He stops, breathes. The air tastes like copper again. Behind the voice, there was singing. Humans singing something soft, harmonized, beautiful, in the way final things are beautiful. What did they sing? I didn't know then. A lullaby, I learned later. Something you sing to frightened children. The holochart updates. Troop transports entering atmosphere. The human voice continued. New Canaan has 840,000 citizens. We evacuated 250,000. The remaining 590,000 volunteered to stay. They are in hardened bunkers. They know what's coming. They voted. Unanimously. Thel'nox watches the arbiter process this. Watches understanding fail to arrive. Good. Let him wrestle with it. Unanimously, Thel'nox repeats. 590,000 people voted to die, to stay behind, to become ammunition. You came to teach us, Kelvara, the honorable way. The human's voice. Exhausted, grieving, certain. Here is what you don't understand about humans, Admiral. We don't have honor. We have survival. And we've learned something. The only way to survive wolves, pause, is to become what wolves fear. How much time remained? 19 minutes. Rilvesh's transport was at 90 kilometers altitude, descending. 33 others in formation. 6,000 soldiers. What did your tactical officers advise? That it was a bluff. Thel'nox's voice goes flat, reciting. Velnik said no species destroys their own territory. My weapons officer agreed. My cultural liaison confirmed that self-annihilation violated every known principle of warfare across 47 Concord species. And you? I agreed with them. I had 40 cycles of command experience. I understood war, understood that threats must be evaluated against probability matrices. The probability of any species destroying their own world approached 0.003. So, you ordered, maintain attack vectors, jam all human frequencies, proceed with landing operations. Each word costs him. I told them humanity needed to learn that intimidation fails against Kelvara. On the holochart, the troop transports continue their descent. Thel'nox watches himself order his nephew's death in real time, replayed in perfect detail. On my command screen, Rilvesh smiled, said, "We'll tell this story for generations, Uncle. The day humanity learned that fear has no power over the righteous." What did you say? Yes, beat. 16 minutes later, I watched him vaporize. At 16 minutes, Velnik reported an anomaly. Thel'nox doesn't need the holochart for this. The memory plays behind his eyes whether he wants it or not. Civilian satellites, thousands, reorienting. Weather platforms, communications arrays, educational projects launched by colony schools, all moving with synchronized precision. Solar panels rotating, Thruster burns in microsecond intervals. Doing what? Focusing sunlight. Concentrating reflected radiation toward specific atmospheric coordinates. Thel'nox pulls up the sensor data. My tactical officer pulled atmospheric scans. Metallic aerosols. Aluminum particulate. Magnesium compounds. Titanium dust. Uniform concentration. 40 to 60 kilometers altitude. Planet-wide distribution. How long had it been there? Weeks. Based on dispersion modeling. Weeks of careful distribution. Agricultural aircraft. Weather intervention flights. Atmospheric research missions. The humans had seeded their own sky. Thel'nox looks at the Arbiter. They'd built a fuel air bomb from their own atmosphere, used their civilian infrastructure to construct a doomsday weapon, and we never noticed because we were looking for military threats. We never considered they'd weaponize weather satellites and crop dusters. You ordered retreat. At 14 minutes? Yes. Emergency recall. All transports. Maximum ascent. All vessels below 50,000 kilometers achieve high orbit. Did Rilvesh's transport receive the order? Long silence. Yes. Did they comply? They tried. Reversed thrust. Maximum burn. But they were at 77 kilometers, descending at terminal velocity. The physics. His voice breaks. The physics didn't care about my orders. At 18 minutes, 40 seconds, New Canaan's sky ignited. Thel'nox stands. Can't sit for this part. Never can. Describe what you saw. I saw. He stops. Starts again. The satellites focused their reflected sunlight. Individually insignificant. Collectively sufficient. Ignition sources. The metallic clouds caught fire. He touches the viewport's edge, where he'd stood 17 cycles ago. Fuel-air detonation. Hypersonic propagation. 40 kilometers of seeded atmosphere became plasma. Temperature spike. 3,000 degrees Celsius. Expanding at Mach 8.3. A shell of fire encircling the entire planet. Where was your nephew's transport? 42 kilometers altitude, when the wavefront hit. Admiral, for the record, describe what happened. Thel'nox closes his secondary eyelids. It doesn't help. Never helps. His command screen was piped to my console. I saw his face. Confusion first. Why is the sky glowing? Then, understanding. Army. Mathematical comprehension of what was about to happen. Then, terror. Pure terror. His mouth opened, forming words. Maybe my name. Maybe a prayer. I'll never know. Why not? Because his hull temperature exceeded 4,000 degrees Celsius in 2.7 seconds. The transmission cut to white noise. His transponder vanished. Thermal signature flared white-hot. Like a star being born. Then darkness. Thel'nox opens his eyes. 34 thermal signatures on my tactical display. 34 transports. They all flared. All went dark. 6,000 deaths in the time it takes to exhale. My hand still held the comlink, ready to give orders. Orders to soldiers who no longer existed. Just molecules, scattered across New Canaan's burning sky. He sits back down. The Arbiter waits. That wasn't the end, was it? The Arbiter prompts. End? Thel'nox's laugh is sharp. That was the opening move. Cascading failures. The thermal bloom generated electromagnetic pulses. 40 warships. Systems unshielded. Optimized for offense. Went dark. Not destroyed. Just blind. Deaf. Drifting. Casualties? None immediately. But their crews were trapped. Screaming on frequencies no one could hear because the burning atmosphere disrupted all radio communication. I couldn't coordinate. Couldn't command. Couldn't even confirm which ships still functioned. The satellites that survived began systematically self-destructing. Orbital mines, turning themselves into expanding shrapnel clouds. Kessler syndrome. Weaponized. Deliberate. 18 vessels died to debris impacts in the first hour. Thel'nox pulls up casualty reports. Endless columns of names. Reactors breached. Hulls punctured. Compartments decompressed. Emergency channels filled with screaming until the screaming stopped. What did you do? I tried to reach Rilvesh's transport. Silence. I knew the mathematics. Probability of survival, 0. But I tried anyway. Opened channels. Called his designation. Waited. For how long? 3 minutes. Static only. Then? Thel'nox's hands grip the podium edge. A voice. Not military traffic. Not Rilvesh. A woman singing. A lullaby. Simple melody. Repetitive. A mother's voice. Trying to comfort a frightened child. Source? Surface transmission. Bunker complex. 17. Southern continent. My communications officer traced it. He stops. Forces himself to continue. I watched that bunker's thermal signature. Watched it climb. Interior temperature exceeding safety thresholds. Structural warnings cascading. The singing stopped at 4 minutes, 17 seconds. The bunker's signature flatlined at 4 minutes, 38 seconds. His voice goes completely flat. Later, after the war, after the tribunals, after they granted me access to human archives, I learned her name. Specialist Sarah Reeves, Colonial Defense Force, sensor technician, age 34. She volunteered to stay behind, operate one of the bunker arrays. Her children, 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9, were on evacuation transports. She sang them to sleep one last time, across the void, while the atmosphere above her bunker heated to temperatures that melted steel reinforcements. She sang until her vocal cords cauterized. Silence in the chamber. Her children lived. She knew they would. That was the calculation. Thel'nox looks directly at the arbiter. 840,000 people. They saved 250,000. Let 590,000 die. Planned it. Voted on it. Volunteered for it. What species does that? The arbiter has no answer. Neither does Thel'nox. 17 cycles later, he still doesn't. At 23 minutes, human ships emerged. From orbit? From below. Thel'nox pulls up reconnaissance footage. Mountain sides opening. Hangar doors revealing hardened facilities that had waited silent and invisible. 8 ships had fled toward the planet. 23 rose from it. They never retreated. No. They prepared. The fleeing ships were theater, bait. The real force was underground the entire time. He zooms in on the vessels. Ugly, brutally functional. Mining ships with military weapons welded to superstructures. Cargo haulers wearing mismatched armor plates. Agricultural transports mounting missile pods on hardpoints, never designed for them. Under normal circumstances, my fleet would have destroyed them in minutes. But half my ships were blind. A third dodging debris. The rest scattered, unable to coordinate. And the humans? They knew exactly where every vessel was. Ground sensors had tracked us throughout. Perfect targeting data. Synchronized attack patterns. They rose from their bunkers like surgeons operating on an already dying patient. The Kelshara's wisdom? Caught in decaying orbit. Debris impact crippled our secondary thrusters. I watched through the viewport as a human vessel approached. Bulk freighter, faded logo, new Canaan Agricultural Cooperative. 6 missile pods bolted to its frame. Targeting lasers painted my bridge. Thel'nox remembers the red light, how it looked on Velnik's face, how everyone went silent. We couldn't maneuver, couldn't fire, weapons systems offline. I waited for the missiles. Did they fire? No. Instead, a transmission. Voice only. Young, female, exhausted. Thel'nox closes his eyes. Hears it again. Kashari Dreadnought Kelshara's wisdom. This is Enkak Prairie Wind. Stand down your weapons. We're not here to finish you. What did you say? I asked why. Why offer mercy at all? Her answer. Because you're beaten, and because we're trying to remember we're not you. Thel'nox opens his eyes. The Prairie Wind extended its docking collar, offered to pull us to stable orbit. I asked how many ships they could assist. The silence told me everything before she answered. How many? 1 crew. Maybe. That's all they had left. 4 ships combat-capable total, all running on backup power. Prairie Wind was the only one with functional docking equipment. 1 crew. I had 14 ships transmitting distress. 800 souls on my flagship, over 10,000 across the fleet. What did you do? Thel'nox touches the metal fragment again. It's warm from his pocket. I transmitted to all ships. Self-destruct authorization. Thel'nox Vas Kelshara. Confirmation code. Kel-77 Ascendant. All vessels execute. Deny the enemy intelligence. Deny them propaganda. Die as we lived. Serving Kelvara. How many? Complied. 6 ships. Immediately. Brief new stars blooming in New Canaan's orbit. 8 ships didn't respond. Couldn't. 2 damaged, 2 dead. And the human captain? Thel'nox's voice drops to barely audible. She said, Admiral, I'm sorry you made that choice. I'm not sorry for what I'm about to do. The prairie wind detached, maneuvered toward the nearest silent ship, began rescue operations. Over the next 40 hours, as life support failed aboard my flagship, as oxygen levels dropped and my crew slowly suffocated, I watched the humans save 3,400 Kashari lives. How? 4 ships, barely functional, running on spite and human stubbornness. They pulled survivors from derelict vessels, shared oxygen, water, medical supplies. Commander Elizabeth Santos, the Prairie Wind's captain, personally spacewalked to a ship with a destroyed airlock, cut through the hull with a plasma torch, dragged out 17 survivors by herself. Thel'nox pulls up the footage, shows it to the commission. Her world was burning below, 590,000 dead, the atmosphere still on fire, the sky still screaming, and she saved her enemies. Did you understand why? No. 17 cycles later, I still don't. Not fully. He pauses. But I think that's the difference. We wage war to conquer. They wage war to survive. And when survival is secured, they remember how to be people. We never learned that trick. Present day. Commission chamber. The Arbiter asks the final question. What happened to New Canaan after the war? Thel'nox picks up the metal fragment, holds it to the light. The humans made it a memorial. Left it uninhabitable. Let nature reclaim it slowly. They seeded the ruins with radiation-tolerant plants. Forests that will take centuries to fully grow. They carved a message into the largest mountain, visible from orbit, every known language. He recites from memory. Here lie 590,000 who chose freedom over slavery. Remember what we're willing to lose. Remember what you'll never take from us. The burned sky remains. The atmospheric chemistry permanently altered. At dawn and dusk, the sky glows red. They call it the fire shroud. And humans travel there, millions annually, not to live, to remember. To stand in the ruins and remember what their species becomes when survival demands it. It's the most visited place in human space. Not Earth, not their grand cities or beautiful colonies. A dead planet. A grave world. Thel'nox sets down the metal, because they're terrified of forgetting what they became. Admiral. The Arbiter leans forward. If you could return to that moment, hearing the transmission, making the choice, would you choose differently? Long silence. Every day I ask myself this. The answer should be obvious. Yes. Retreat. Save Rilvesh. Save 590,000 humans. Save my fleet, my career, everything. But if I'd retreated, we wouldn't have learned. The Dominion would have found another human world, made the same mistakes, eventually pushed them hard enough that they'd burn Earth itself. 30 billion people. They'd already built the orbital infrastructure, already prepared the weapon. So the humans knew. They knew we needed to learn, knew that half measures wouldn't teach us. So they taught us with fire. With 590,000 martyrs who volunteered to become a lesson, Thel'nox's voice finally breaks completely. I lost my nephew, my fleet, my career, my people's empire. Everything I was, but I learned. He looks at the Arbiter with eyes that have seen too much, and maybe that was worth the price. Pause. Though, I suspect Sarah Reeves's children would disagree. The commission adjourns. Thel'nox walks toward the exit, sees her in the gallery. Elderly human female. Burn scars visible on hands, neck, one side of her face. Dark eyes that hold 17 years of grief without flinching. Dr. Michelle Reeves, age 63, daughter of specialist Sarah Reeves. They stop, face each other across the aisle. No words. What words could possibly exist? She nods once. Not forgiveness, not absolution, recognition. He nods back, walks past. Behind him, a commission aide approaches her. Dr. Reeves, why did you come? Her answer carries through the empty chamber. I wanted to see if he remembered her name. Did he? Yes. Silence. That's enough. Thel'nox stands alone in the corridor outside. In his pocket, the metal fragment. Warm from 17 cycles of carrying. This grows heavier. He leaves it on the windowsill. Walks away. Behind him, through the window, New Canaan glows red in the distance, the fire shroud burning eternal in the evening light of a star that forgot how to forgive, and 590,000 voices sing lullabies to children who will never, ever forget.